could there have been only one? And he's back in business.
Is the worst idea in the history of bad ideas.
Part 2 is the final chapter in the violent history.
This time, it's personal.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black bat?
In an uncertain world, in a chaotic time, justice wears a mask.
Was good. His was better.
Love is a game.
What is it about the wrong kind of man?
It's the car, right? Chicks love the car. Power is a machine.
Now you've devised a way to read men's minds.
By the way, I've seen your mind, freak.
And revenge is a trap.
You're a genius.
Riddler and Two-Face can make a pretty lethal combination. Train me, let me be your partner.
Who's your tailor?
But first,
let's meet our contestants.
Going down.
If the bat wants to play, we'll play.
Was that over the top?
Don't work too late.
You forgot the part where you kissed the girl.
The real game begins. Courage now. Truth always. Batman forever.
I'm nodding silently, and that's for me to sync the. Oh wait, that doesn't make any sense. It has to be sound.
Oh, like clap.
Oh wait, yeah, John, clap.
What is that?
Andrew, clap your ass.
Yeah, hold on.
What if yours was like?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's loose.
Okay.
Welcome to Revenge of the Sequel, the podcast just about sequels. And boy, howdy, is it a historic day for us, because for the first time ever, we aren't in the same room at the same time. We are virtually connected through the magic of computer science.
Of the internet.
This is a podcast just about sequels. We watch them across all decades, new ones, old ones, and some to commemorate the life of historic directors, in which that's what this one is. We're talking Batman Forever, Por Vida. My name's Emmanuel.
Hey, what's up? I'm Andrew. Hey, I'm John.
And if it sounds awkward, and if you think we're taking these weird pauses and there are some delays, well, it's because we're being safe, and we are doing this podcast remotely. I'd say for the first time ever. Isn't that right? Have we ever done anything close to this?
I don't think so. I think for you, didn't you do something like this for the sitting room, possibly?
Yeah, and you know what? We did do a podcast when we've called people on the podcast, I feel like.
Lloyd Kaufman.
Yeah. And
that was a little weird.
It was okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I hope everyone is staying safe. The reason why we're doing this is because if you're listening to this in the future, it is currently, hopefully, the apex of COVID-19 in our specific area, San Antonio, Texas, where cases are at an all-time high and hospital capacities are also at an all-time low, I guess, the availability. And so we are being safe. We all got tested and we're social distancing, and we're so distant from each other right now.
Also, we're lazy. We don't want to go over to each other's houses.
Yeah.
I have no pants on.
Andrew,
while we're doing this via
if
Skype
this works
Zoom
out
or whatever.
if this works out, we will never be in the same room ever again.
I welcome it. I can't wait.
So this is kind of weird. Oh, never mind. I was like, technically...
I know, it's half true. Me and John are in the same room.
Yeah, we're technically in the same room.
You guys live together.
Emmanuel just didn't want to see us.
Yeah, it was my choice.
Andrew has a really cool background on this compared to mine. Mine is just, it's my bedroom and all my shit is in the background.
I can see in your background, it looks like all of the seasons of Smallville. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, it is, actually. Damn, I should have arranged my DVD collection in a different manner.
I'm a Superman fan, por vida.
All right, well, let's break down the movies that we see back there. I see...
Yeah, actually, say it. Go for it.
Creed 2. Yeah, Andrew's really working hard to 15 horror movies.
Yeah, there's some public domain horror movies right there.
What do you think is the best collection of movies that you have, like, or a movie that you have that it was hard to find a copy of, a snuff film?
I really like there's a copy, you can't see it at the time right there, obviously, but there's a copy of The Beyond. Oh, and Dead Alive. By Peter Jackson.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you can see The Brood by David Cronenberg there too.
I think Bang Bus Part 10 is here also.
It is not.
They don't get. I think after Part 7, they jump the shark, and a lot of those bus locations are not believable.
Ooh, there's Survival of the Dead is right there, and I only own that just for the collection.
Wow. I think the rarest thing that I have is I have an episode I got from a flea market of Batman Begins bootlegged. And I also have I have a Chinese bootleg version of 50 Shades of Grey with all of the sex stuff cut out. So it's a 45-minute long movie.
Dialogue scene.
Yeah. And I remember watching it for the first time, and I thought that was the cut of 50 Shades of Grey. So I thought, that movie wasn't that bad. Why are people getting so crazy about it? And I think, it's because it was all censored. I only support the mainland. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
But the reason why we're talking about Batman Forever on Revenge of the Sequel this week is the death of its director, Joel Schumacher. How do you say it? Schumacher?
Joel Schumacher, yeah. Joel Schumacher was, so we kind of should get this out of the way now. Obviously, this is a sequel podcast. Joel Schumacher is a prolific director. He's directed many great movies and, some not so great ones. But for this podcast, it's a sequel podcast. And the two of the sequels that he directed were Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, infamously, really. We're choosing to do Batman Forever because it is kind of like the actual movie one. Yeah, it's a movie of the two. But Joel Schumacher has directed greats, kind of like he has directed St. Elmo's Fire. He directed The Lost Boys, which is a very popular movie.
Whedon Boys.
Probably his most famous movie or well-known movie is Lost Boys, I think.
He's directed the original version of Flatliners.
Which I watched recently after I watched the reboot, and it is like very different, but I thought very fun.
He's directed also hits like Falling Down with Michael Douglas, The Client, A Time to Kill, which kind of made
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey was around before this, but he was like a leading man with that movie.
Yeah.
He's also directed
Oscar performance from Matthew McConaughey.
Right, exactly. Just and he's directed some other movies from there on out. Bad Company, Phone Booth.
I think Phone Booth is my favorite Schumacher movie. It's such such an interesting little film.
I gotta go with Phantom of the Opera.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, he did direct the movie adaptation of Phantom of the Opera by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And I do actually like that. I think that might be my favorite Schumacher movie as well.
It suits his style so well.
A lot of the... are you going to talk more? He's made 25 movies across multiple genres. But I think what's really nice about a Schumacher movie is he is definitely has a signature style, and you can even think that a lot of his works are in the same universe in this really weird way. I know he jumps to really dramatic stuff. But Flatliner, a lot of the early stuff feels Like, they're very frenetic. Things are always moving. The design is insane. He started, I think, as a costume designer at a fashion house. Then he worked with Woody Allen for doing his fashion design. And then he wrote a lot of movies featuring large black casts, like The Wiz.
Yeah, and Car Wash, I think, back in the day. Yeah.
And then he became just a staple of Hollywood. And then I think I alluded to it maybe before the pod, but he was one of the only openly gay filmmakers during his entire time, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even all the way up to the early 2000s.
Right.
Making stuff and not unapologetic about his style and and we're going to talk about in this movie, but some of the reception from, I guess, critics and stuff, like he really just didn't care about it at all.
No, I mean, he also seems like in watching like production history on Batman and Robin, he seems like the nicest dude. Like, it seems like a joy to actually work with him as he doesn't seem very introverted like the way Tim Burton probably was, like on his, not that that's a bad thing, but just that it's two different type of like personalities really. Schumacher seems like he's very over the top and very welcoming to actors and crew members alike. I think his last directorial things were, things that he directed basically were two episodes of House of Cards.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
really, really good. Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking about Batman Forever. What year did this come out?
Did this come?
95? Is that your guess?
It was released in June 9th of 1995. Oh, no, June 16th, excuse me, on, basically on the United States. Like, that was the actual date.
Oh, my gosh.
I think it premiered on the 9th, yeah.
Yeah, that's so close to now. Almost, okay. Yeah, kind of crazy, yeah.
It's like 25 years ago.
I know, much longer. That's actually, my girlfriend was born in that year, and now I'm piecing together just the age gap.
Yeah, way to make it weird. Yeah,
you're old. I know. Well, oh well. But yeah, Batman Forever. When was the first time you guys saw this movie? And had you seen the Tim Burton Batman before this or after this?
Okay, so I kind of have a faint memory of seeing Batman Returns in theaters. I was like 3 years old when Batman Returns came out. It was like 1992. But I do remember my mom kind of like walking out of the theater with my mom. She was basically I was about to get siblings that year, and she was basically like, she took me to the movies.
Wait, she was pregnant?
She was pregnant with two. At the time, I don't know if I knew there was twins at the time. I might have been just like a young person, but she was pregnant with what would eventually become Andrew.
What would eventually become Andrew?
So I was in love with basically Batman since I was a kid. I think when Batman Forever came out, I remember thinking it was really weird because none of the theme song was the same. The theme song wasn't the same. Michael Keaton wasn't in it. Everybody was different. But I did love the movie as a kid, and I remember going to see it twice. I do remember that was a rare thing when you're a kid to see a movie like over again. But I did see it twice. I think the second time I do remember Andrew being there, but Andrew says that, it could have been a little too young for him. So I'm going to let, well then I was going to let him speak, but
I don't know this timeline, John. So she was pregnant during the first one.
Probably. I don't know. I'm just like
second one.
It's because 1992 was when Drew was born. So and Batman Returns was like in 1992.
Interesting.
But I do have I'm not sure if I'm I just remember I've always had that memory of walking out of Batman Returns basically. So I'm not sure if I made that up. It's obviously very, very young. I should just ask my mom for confirmation. But
that movie's scary as fuck for a 3-year-old also.
That is probably my favorite Batman of this, I guess, generation, or I don't know if you would have them all connected together, but that's the one with Penguin?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Andrew, do you remember being in the womb, peeking out through the belly button of your mama?
I was 3 years old when this movie came out.
Yeah, that's
forever.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
So why would I be peeking out of her belly button?
You didn't go back in for warmth?
Yeah, for the second coming, or I don't know. But Apparently, John remembers me going to this movie. I was a little bit too young. I was about 3 years old, but it seems like a movie that could have been my very first cinematic experience in a movie, in a theater. Because we talked about maybe Toy Story being that also, but Toy Story was a couple months later, and so it was it was definitely a big change from obviously the other two. I remember the penguin scaring the holy crap out of me when I was younger. When he's like breathing the black out
his
of
teeth.
And you're just like, man, when he bites that dude's nose and stuff like that. And so I remember being freaked out by those for sure. And so this one, obviously the trailers made it seem like it was a completely different ball game, and it was a little bit more family friendly and a little bit funner and more light. Not as, I guess, deep or dark. And so I remember I met John. If John remembers me being there, then I guess I was there. But
well, John, I think I texted you and we talked, and I thought it was this movie, but I think it was Returns. The fact that the Tim Burton Batman movies, Bat People movies, the Tim Burton Bat folk movies were different in tone and kind of surprised the public in a way. We talked about, you just talked about Penguin biting someone's face off, but McDonald's had Batman kids meals, and they had to release a statement saying we're not actually encouraging kids to go watch Batman Returns because it's a hard R. No, it's not a hard R, but it's a darker movie than the one we're about to talk about.
Right. So like Batman Forever came about basically because of what you said, which is like they wanted to change direction and go in a lighter tone because Batman Returns freaks some people out, and for good reason. It's a pretty dark. It's very Burton-esque. It's a little bit more Burton-esque than the first one. So they wanted to go in a different direction, and I think they used I don't use this the wrong word. I think they actually consulted on Tim Burton on who should be the replacement, and because Joel Schumacher said that he did have meetings with Tim Burton, and
I think he produced. They were friends still. Tim Burton.
Yes, I mean he produced it technically, like in the name only sense. That Andrew's doing the air quotes. So they went in a different direction. If Batman Returns was inspired, if the original Batman and Batman Returns were inspired off of Dark Knight Returns and darker comics that Batman was a part of at the time, then Batman Forever was inspired off of the 40s and 50s comics, where they were very lighthearted, and they were very kid friendly. Like these comic books were just like about the adventures of Batman and Robin.
Really close, I think, even to the 60s TV show Batman with Adam West and that kind of camp.
I think that was unintentional, but maybe they added a little bit of flair to it. From that, not as much as Batman and Robin, because Batman and Robin is basically the second coming of the 60 series if you watch Batman and Robin.
And that's Freeze and
Poison Ivy.
Poison Ivy, right?
And Bane. Yeah.
I don't remember Bane, but yeah.
Bane is in there too.
Even this movie, I was rewatching it and I was like, oh my God, I forgot Drew Barrymore is in this. And
yes,
all of these other actors.
Right. So that's basically how Batman Forever came about. It was a bigger, grander movie. Everything was built from scratch. Like every single set was built on the Warner Brothers lot. It was
Probably
huge
miniatures
movie.
And stuff too.
Miniatures, but also like full on sets. I think that's what Tommy Lee Jones said, that it was intimidating, not because of the character, like not the character that he had to play, but because of the scale of it all. Like, you'd walk into it and you're like, oh my God, like, you've never seen, it's like old Hollywood filmmaking where you like, they were building sets for these old, epic 1930s, like, history movies. And it's just
Metropolis, like, Cleopatra.
Yeah, exactly.
Giant things you can't fake.
Right, exactly. And everything is super over the top. Like, obviously this is a time where comic book movies were just that. Like, when you hear comic book movies, you're like, oh, it's a comic book. Like, it's not real world. It's it's super. I heard your dog.
Yeah.
So it's grand. It's over the top. It's almost cartoony in a way, but it's very, it's kind of more satisfying. And I know Andrew said that this movie isn't as deep as the Burton movies, but I think it tried to be. And it's definitely, a little bit deeper and darker than the one that comes next, Batman and Robin.
Yeah, there's even, and we'll talk about first impressions in a bit, but yeah, I think that whole. Oh, wait, maybe we're already in it.
I think we did those already. We're in it. But anyway, go on.
But yeah, I think that what you're bringing up, that kind of, I guess, grounded and human part, I would always equate it to like the Bruce Wayne part of the Batman universe is explored, but also in a comic book way, I feel, because most of his discoveries and breakthroughs happen with the help of a psychiatrist. Does that make sense? Like, that is a very comic booky thing to have, like being forced to those moments of change instead of it just happening like in other ways. It's like, hey, I'm a person who's here to examine your psyche, so now we're gonna do that.
Yeah. It's very crazy because I think a lot of it was a lot of the movie and the script was built around this specific sequence that ends up getting ultimately taken out of the movie, which which is kind of crazy, especially because again it was like the groundwork and stuff that they kind of had to build everything else around that red journal that he ends up finding, that you end up finding out that is his dad's. But exactly. Originally, it was supposed to dive into his psyche on like Bruce Wayne, on having to kind of come to terms with everything. Or it was a repressed memory. It ends up being that, like, since it's the dad's journal, he reads it, and the last line is, "Hey, we would like to stay in today, but Bruce wanted to go watch a movie."
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I do remember him. Sorry, I do remember him saying it's my fault in this movie, because he also feels like he's the reason why Robin's parents die. Yeah. But now that you break that down for me, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, isn't it crazy that a lot of this was just cut out of the movie when originally it was supposed to be the movie?
I do feel that is something that happens even in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. That's the whole reason why, he's like, oh, I'm bad for you, stay away. Like, it's a very Twilight storyline.
It's really weird though, because I think like that whole, I guess like like Drew said, like the movie was kind of anchored around that whole storyline about like Bruce Wayne's like psych basically, and is I think they cut it out because, like, again, it would make the movie a little darker, because there's also a lot of deleted scenes where, like, Two-Face is actually a little bit more murderous. And wow. And then there's also...
Then he already is?
Something like that. And because he writes, like, blood on the wall. Or he writes a message on the wall with blood, and apparently that was too dark, so they took it out. There's an extended fight scene that references Batman's killing in the previous two Burton movies that was cut out. But, like, it was kind of, like, meant to kind of shock you, be like, whoa, Batman does kill. Like, it's not that the Batman... I think Two-Face even says Batman doesn't kill is a ridiculous notion.
Yeah, I think it's the duality on things where you just, obviously, you're the same as me. That's what Two-Face is saying.
And that's crazy because that's never brought up in any other Batman movie. Like, it's funny because I think even Zack Snyder, his Justice League and shit, his Justice League cut has, like, apparently a reference to Batman killing people in BVS, which again was cut because Joss Whedon came in and retooled the whole thing. And even in Nolan's Batman movies, he does seem to kind of like turn a blind eye or kind of like cheat kill. Like, he kills the dude in the dumpster with his Batmobile, and he doesn't save guys. Yeah, he doesn't save Ra's al Ghul, but apparently he has a no kill rule. But that's never explained. And I think watching that deleted scene in Batman Forever was the first time I heard on-screen characters reference his murderous tendencies, basically.
It's cool. And I feel like there's something about these movies not feeling that they're not really set in our world, like the Nolan movies or even the BVS and Justice League. Like, they feel like they take place on an alternate dimension or another planet just because they look that way, and we'll talk about the acting that happens in the movie, but it's very, it's over the top. It is like an opera, not even a soap. It's like almost a soap opera. It's that way. So whenever they end up killing people, because a lot of people die in this movie that were Batman Forever, a lot of them not by the hands of Batman, but a lot of people, people are thrown out of windows and stuff like that. And I don't know, like, I almost feel like it's comical in a way because they're made, and these deaths are sometimes just set pieces, or ways to, I don't know, to show how twisted and demented someone is. If you hear my dog, I also, just so everyone knows, we're recording this on July 4th as well, so I think the fireworks might be triggering him.
Oh, it's making him howl.
Yeah, Sophia's outside with sparklers and dynamite to celebrate this country. But yeah, John, go through the cast, because this cast is
huge.
Surprising. It's huge. And huge. I think Leonardo da Vinci turned down this movie because he was dead for hundreds of years. But no, I think DiCaprio there's a lot of people, even though this cast is amazing, there's quite a few people that also turned down.
Could have been there, yeah.
Yeah, who could have been in this giant, expensive blockbuster.
Yeah, I don't have the list of who could have been in there, but I do remember reading that DiCaprio, Ewan McGregor were at one point were kind of considered for Robin.
Wow.
Even back when Burton was involved, Marlon Wayans was actually casted. She was cast as Robin. Cast as Robin. And that his movie never came about. So like everything changed when Schumacher came on board.
I think even Christian Bale might have been considered for Robin.
Christian Bale at one point was considered for Robin. But for the cast that they did...
Yeah. I was going to say that Christian Bale in American Psycho plays Two-Face pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. He's kind of like Victor Zsasz or something in that.
He also plays Batman.
That's true.
Yeah, in the Nolan movies. So the cast that is in this movie, a lot of them are kind of are very famous now. Even like background, extras, which we'll get to after I get to the main cast.
John,
but all these
go in order that you think they were on the call sheet.
Shots fired. Here we go.
Probably.
Or how about now? How about current call sheet? So Val Kilmer,
all the way at the bottom. Batman, we're saving for last, baby.
Oh well, I was just gonna go probably in the order that Wikipedia says, because I'm sure that's the way it was on the call sheet.
Yeah, that's fine.
So Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne, Batman, he takes over the role from Michael Keaton. He obviously it's in the same continuity as the Tim Burton Batman movies. Everything just magically looks different. We'll talk how they do their roles, but let me just go down to the cast because it's so large. So Val Kilmer as Batman and Bruce Wayne, Tommy Lee Jones as Harvey Dent, Two-Face, Jim Carrey as Edward Nygma or the Riddler, Nicole Kidman as Dr. Chase Meridian, Chris O'Donnell as Dick Grayson Robin, Michael Gough as, I think I'm saying that right, Michael Gough as Alfred Pennyworth, Pat Hingle as James Gordon, as Commissioner Gordon, George Wallace as the mayor of Gotham City, Drew Barrymore as Sugar, which is Two-Face's good assistant, Debbie Mazar as Spice, which is Two-Face's bad assistant.
Sugar and Spice.
We got to talk about this because Two-Face is over the top as hell.
Yeah.
Ed Begley Jr. as Fred Stickley, which is basically a supervisor at Wayne Enterprises.
Who's just mean for no reason.
And I can't really say his last name, but his Rene Auberjonois as Dr. Burton, which is funny because like Dr. Burton in the movie is a psychiatrist who looks exactly like Tim Burton, which is why they call him Dr. Burton.
Just hair everywhere, all fucked up.
But you also brought up Jon Favreau being in this too, right?
Jon Favreau is actually in this. You can't notice him unless you're really looking for him. He's actually a part of Bruce Wayne's entourage in the scene where he first meets the Riddler.
Edward Nygma before the Riddler.
Yeah. He's actually in the background, and he's very obviously very young at the moment, but he's an extra basically. And
I think he would be number one in the call sheet now, baby.
Definitely.
Yeah, after Iron Man and Chef.
The Mandalorian.
Mando. Well, let's talk about Val Kilmer first, because he's the leading man of the movie. Val Kilmer plays Batman in the role that had previously only been played in movies by a couple people, and even in movies and TV by a handful of folk.
Right.
How do you guys think he did in that role?
I thought I've always liked Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne more than a Batman. Because I think he plays the very troubled, billionaire playboy character very well. And for the longest time, whenever I thought of a live action Bruce Wayne, I thought like his Bruce Wayne was kind of unmatched up until we got some, previous ones. There are some more modern ones. But he definitely plays a Bruce Wayne that is very tortured. I liked Val Kilmer's Batman performance. His actual Batman was okay. It's still kind of, it's I prefer that Batman over like, Clooney's Batman. Yeah. But I did think that Val Kilmer did a great job for what he had. I heard he was kind of a hassle to be around on set. Like he was
Schumacher called him psychotic.
Psychotic, yes, he did. Which is weird though, because we got in watching like the kind of like the documentary on the behind the scenes. It's obviously filmed in the early 2000s, which is later. Val Kilmer seems to kind of remember these memories as being like really good, and there's no mention of a beef between Schumacher and Kilmer, but that isn't the first time I've heard Kilmer was difficult on set. I think like in later movies, like on the Island of Dr. Moreau, he was also kind of like, apparently he clashed with Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was clocking out, obviously mentally, on that movie, but he apparently he came to blows with that. But as his performance on scene was kind of like, I dug it. Even like as a kid, I was like, okay, cool. And that's Batman. Why I was kind of weirded out whenever we got another different Batman for Batman and Robin.
Andrew, how did you feel about Val Kilmer? Full name Valerie Kilmer.
He was aight. I'm just kidding. No, he was. I think John said it all. I think. I thought that some people have played Batman, like the character of Batman, better, but he was a really good Bruce Wayne, and I thought he obviously fit the look. I think there's only a handful of people that can even fit the look. Even Michael Keaton was kind of weird. I know there was a lot of backlash when he was first cast, being mainly kind of a little bit more of a comedic actor and stuff like that. But Val Kilmer obviously had the look down, and I thought he couldn't have done better. He could have done a lot worse, but yeah, he ended up being okay. And it sucks that he doesn't have the same type of star power now. But he's gonna be in the new what is it called? The one with Tom Cruise.
Top Gun.
Yeah, there's this thing with Batman where you want him to be a little brooding, I guess. In this movie, he has the repressed memory thing that we've already talked about quite a bit.
He has a lot of PTSD flashbacks mid-movie.
I mean, if he acted psychotic, I guess, on set, I mean, his character is literally like a case that needs to be cracked. But
by some sort of psychiatrist.
Yeah, so I don't. You see some of that in the movie. I think that there is also. I think with the introduction of Robin, there is that thing where he's the kind of a father figure, like a forced father figure to Robin, especially with his like cyclical, like, oh, I did it again, I killed someone's parents again. Like that's all really dramatic stuff. But yeah, I think I was texting you guys that like there's something about Batman where you kind of just want him to be like smart and just happen to have the resources to do all of the things he does. And there's a part of me who thinks that Batman kind of is just now like a super soldier in a way, like I am just really good at weapons. And in this movie, I feel like he was. This movie was not about him being good at fighting or being bat-like. It's mostly him dealing with his stuff and having just the tools and resources for it, I guess.
Well, and that's something that completely went over my head when I was younger. I just saw the flash and flare, the bright colors. I was comparing it to Tokyo, Japan, because right from the get-go when we get that Two-Face heist or whatever,
Yeah.
And it's his 2-year anniversary of him being captured and stuff. But whatever. But yeah, lots of colors, lots of lights, lots of Batman comes in whipping ass, and he has that awkward like sexual tension with Chase Meridian, and she's trying to get into the bat suit, slide into the bat DMs.
Do bats swim? Because I'm a little moist.
Good.
That's a line I wrote.
Oh shit. But and so it's again, I remember just being distracted with the visual change, especially coming from Tim Burton's that only used black and white.
Yeah,
it looked like, especially after Batman Returns with all the snow and all the gothic stuff.
Tim Burton loves black and white and under saturation.
We get a little bit more of a flamboyant, big backdrop to Gotham City and stuff like that. I remember being distracted with that rather than focusing on these big character moments that I kind of rediscovered recently watching.
Well, so everything about this movie is colorful and flamboyant. Let's talk about the two villains. Tommy Lee Jones, fresh off that sweet Oscar, and having worked with Schumacher before in The Client, plays Two-Face, and Jim Carrey, who I don't think could have been any more famous now, and then definitely back in the 90s, plays the Riddler. What did you guys think about those two? Super villains, or
it's kind of weird because they were essentially the same person. It could have been one villain. It could have been the Joker. Yeah, and then they were in the same movie.
I feel like, did you feel that they were trying to outdo each other a lot? Does that make sense? Like, I'm going to do this crazy thing, and the guy's like, well, I'm going to choke you and spit in your mouth.
To be honest, that's what happened on set. I heard Tommy Lee Jones had a big issue with feeling like Jim Carrey was trying to outdo him.
That's I mean, I definitely got that feeling. I was really surprised about the Tommy Lee Jones thing. I forgot completely he was in this movie, and
he's in the first scene. He's in like the first sequence.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him ever in anything like this. Because I've kind of
Captain America.
I've never seen any. I mean, it's kind of wild.
It's really weird because I think Tommy Lee Jones even says, like, when someone was trying to cast him in this movie, he was like, well, just send me the script. And they sent it to him, and he's like, and he read it, and he was like, I don't get why you want me in this movie.
Oh my God.
He didn't understand. He was like, why do you want me in this? And apparently he took the role for his son. Like, his son was very enthusiastic about the role, and he had never technically done a comic book movie, so him being an actor, he was like, okay, I'll try it. But you're right, this is a not very Tommy Lee Jones role. Like, he's over the top, he's campy, he's the characteristics of Harvey Two-Face in this movie is really weird because he's acting kind of like a Joker-like character. Like, he throws one-liners out, and
it's not good. It's not good and bad. It's like insane and, I guess, less insane.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a literal representation. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is incredibly over the top. It's when we meet Drew Barrymore's character. It's when we go to his house, and his house is literally split down the middle. There's a good light side and then a dark bad guy side. And everything is like that in this thing. Like, do you want this, cactus, or do you want this water? Like, it's all so different. And I was like, man, this is insane. And then in 5 minutes, Riddler walks in. And I was like, oh my God, this is even crazier now. It's
a lot of shit happens in this movie. It's pretty crazy. Well, even like the like Dreamcatcher doll that she ends up showing him, split down the middle, the half and half, the duality of everything.
It's pretty wild. Well, let's talk about Riddler. Let's talk about Jim Carrey. How do you guys think he did? He plays a scientist who works for Bruce Wayne, who throws his boss off of like a 300-story building or something because he couldn't get a meeting with Wayne, and he has a lot of stuff going on too.
It's because his project gets discontinued because Bruce Wayne doesn't give the approval, which I think is very weird because obviously when we first meet him, he's super upset obsessed with him, and he loves Bruce Wayne, everything about him. And then in like 5 seconds, it just completely all turns. Like, I'm gonna be murderous and just try to come at you with everything I got.
John, what did you think about the Riddler? The first time we see this Riddler, because there's an Adam West Riddler too, and they're really close, I think, in tone
and in costume. Shit.
Yeah, that's true.
I think as a kid, I thought this was like a definitive one. I mean, obviously, when you're watching it as a kid and you're watching like a live action Batman, you're kind of like you're very amazed at what's happening on screen. As for Jim Carrey as the Riddler, again, a little bit Joker-like. I know Riddler is kind of a playful character compared to Two-Face, you know, if you're comparing the actual ones.
Riddle me this before everything, right? Or something.
Right. And there's like, you know, most of Batman's villains have like gags like that. You know, Two-Face, again, I'm sure Two-Face even in like the, you know, in other, you know, in other comics and maybe in the lighter comics also have like, you know, half gags, you know, like the way he kind of does it in this movie.
Referring to multiple people as himself.
Right, yeah. And, you know, obviously standing in the middle of a room where like it's split down the middle. The Riddler, Jim Carrey's Riddler was super over the top in a very good way, in a very Jim Carrey way. Because Jim Carrey was right off of Ace Ventura. And, you know, he was on his way to becoming like a comedy superstar at the time. Apparently a lot of this stuff a lot of it was Jim Carrey's just performance that was brought into it. I think Schumacher said that like every now and then when they would do a take, they're like, well, I don't know if that's what I wanted or not. And Jim Carrey would do something different, but even more over the top than what he just did. Yeah. And I think all of those takes are in the flick.
Yeah, I think Jim Carrey, who's known for being a fantastic improviser and like physical comedian, I mean, he definitely brings all of that into the Riddler in this Schumacher movie.
Yeah, right. And I think a lot of that was already considered because I think before this they wanted Robin Williams, who is kind of the same way, very a physical actor, very slapsticky and super over the top type of character. And so I mean, I think you can't be if Jim Carrey was like if he was cast as a Batman villain, people would probably assume it was the Joker, so it makes sense that he's kind of like him a little bit.
We're gonna talk about the success of this movie, like I'm sure in like the reception from just the general audience and the fact that you probably saw it twice or something, John, but I think about the cast of this movie and I'm like, if this was the 90s, this movie would do well. You just have to put Jim Carrey at the top and then like Tommy Lee Jones to get some people who are like, wow, this is an Oscar movie.
Definitely. I think in some of the production notes, they had said that this movie was aimed towards like an MTV generation, which kind of shows in a way, like you can kind of tell what they're talking about. But you know, Jim Carrey, he still has very Riddler qualities in it. I think the main thing that the Riddler is he likes, you know, he's a narcissist. So he kind of is always like about me. And he can't like, you know, he loves like the glory and the fame and stuff like that. And that's kind of like what Jim Carrey kind of hit on the nose a little bit, obviously a little too far on the nose. He is menacing too. Like I didn't know that Jim Carrey could play a really cool villain. Not that he's very like
cool,
like intimidating, I guess. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but
his insanity is the fact that he just disregards everything that is in him. So,
right,
including anyone's life, basically, who is in him. But you're right. Like the lines between that and I think we talked about the Joker quite a bit. The lines between thinking it's all a joke and thinking it doesn't matter is pretty close together.
Right. Yeah, and I think. Like we said earlier, I think a lot of that flair was brought into... A lot of that stuff was brought from, like, maybe influence from the 1960s series. You know, when everything is kind of like, you know, oh, I'm a villain, because you're, you know... And then you have to be kind of play it up, and then it's, you know... It's... I don't know. It's it's just... It's a little over the top in watching it now, but it is kind of a little bit more digestible than what comes next, again. It's kind of weird that we keep referencing Batman and Robin, but it's... Andrew said yesterday when we were watching Batman Forever that, like, to me, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin kind of go hand in hand. Like, you can't think of one without thinking of the other.
They all kind of do mix together, I think, for me. Going back and watching this movie, I was like, well, when does this happen? And I was like, oh, that happens in
the other movie.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, it's really cool in watching this and then hearing the behind the scenes and stuff that this is an actual, like, this tried to be an actual like Batman movie at one point, and it's obviously way more of a Batman movie than Batman and Robin is. Batman and Robin, no, because Batman and Robin is technically still Batman. It's just a different era. Like I think I said it like earlier. I was like, I think Batman and Robin is full on 60s Batman, like in modern times, or at least in modern 90s times.
Well, we talked about the villains. You brought up Robin. Even though there's a movie titled Batman and Robin, Robin plays like one of the most critical roles in this movie, and we get his origin story in a way that was also and he's a well, what did you guys think about Robin in this movie? Because
Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah, just his introduction at all, I feel like they were trying to do so much in this thing. And I remember there's a scene where Robin, I don't know if you remember this, but there's a scene, it's probably on YouTube, where Robin is doing his laundry, and that's when Alfred is like, oh, this guy, he's got something. This guy This guy fucks because he's he's drying his laundry by karate chopping his socks or something. But yeah, what did you guys think about it? I don't think we've ever seen Robin's origin in other movies ever, right?
Or in any other movie, really, or that isn't animated.
Yeah. We see the death of his parents.
I don't know. I'm gonna let Andrew go first because I'm still thinking on my thoughts about Robin, because I think the Robin character is very, you can't have Batman without Robin eventually. Most movies kind of choose to have Robin out of the way. Yeah. But Robin is a very essential part of Batman lore. I still don't know. I think it's the best you could do. Like, Robin can't exist in the Nolan universe, or it can't exist in the... it does
Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
But, like, God damn it. And then like in BVS, he's referenced off, screen and stuff. But as for Robin in this flick, I said I was going to let Andrew go first, and I'm just kind of talking.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, I'll just wait till I can go first.
I'll go first after you two.
Chris O'Donnell played it very well, like as much as you can do. I think Robin's origin story is very tragic, and seeing that is one of the more real parts of the movie and very kind of like heartbreaking. As far as the actual Robin performance himself, like I think Chris O'Donnell knocked it out of the park. I thought he was like pretty great in this flick. For the longest time, even even talking about him in modern times, or like whenever the Nolan trilogy was coming out, I always thought of, whenever you think of Robin, Chris O'Donnell's image jumps into your head. So I think Robin can only exist in these. I can't only, but like right now for me, I can only see Robin existing in some of these lighthearted Batman stories. Obviously, it's very tragic because of the way Robin comes to be, but throwing kind of like an orphan boy with a billionaire orphan that goes dad? Out. Well, just like going, I don't know. It's kind of a weird concept. So you kind of have to like, if it's not over the top or if it's not like cartoony, it's a really weird, like it's a really thing to kind of nail, I guess.
Yeah. Andrew, what do you think about Bruce Wayne's young ward?
The Boy Wonder. I thought he was Wonder. I thought it was weird because he seemed a little bit too old, and so when they were like dropping him off with foster parents that was Bruce Wayne, I was like, why doesn't this motherfucker just go out and get an apartment?
Yeah, like, he was already a carny.
Yeah, this guy's a grown ass man. I think he was like 25 or some shit. But I thought it was a bit odd. But I think it's the closest that you can get to like. I really like the fact that they play it like it's a do-over of Batman, basically, and Batman's kind of watching all of his past trauma come back up because he's noticing it happen with him on the path that he could have gone down and the path that he obviously chose to not follow, the revenge thing and, becoming Batman and all that good stuff. It's kind of the same thing with Robin where there's even a scene where like Batman runs out and he's like, Alfred, I need to suit up. And then Robin walks out and does the same thing. I was like, oh, I get this. Like, and so I dug that they did that. And that's kind of the reason why Batman's repressed memories ends up coming back up and the PTSD and all that good stuff. But I I thought again, because Robin's always campy. I think in some of the animated movies they kind of get him right when they use a different Robin, where it's Damian Wayne, his actual son. But Dick Grayson has always been, I think, a challenge because again, it is a little bit campy. You look at other heroes like Superman and Wonder Woman who can do it all by themselves and stuff, but Batman has always been one of those people that kind of needs the extra help so that he can be Batman. But it was interesting to see him, and it fits the campiness of this new version. The new version that deterred from the Tim Burton way of storytelling or whatever. Yeah, I'm going to ask you a little bit. I'm going to ask you guys about the origin of his name, because they explain that in the movie. But before that, I'll say you brought up, him almost becoming like Batman, repressing a lot of his emotion, wanting revenge. That's definitely his arc, and I think that's maybe even part of Batman's arc in this movie. Is like maybe I can deal with my past, and it'll help me save Robin from becoming me. And it comes to a point when Robin has the choice of killing Two-Face and instead saves his life. He's using trauma to heal trauma. Yeah, and that, I thought that was okay. That's a really, obviously it has the facade of like this insanely colorful and fun movie with like comedic greats, but I was like, that's a very ambitious and more inward-looking goal for at least a Batman movie. But let's talk about Robin's name. Is that how is it explained in this movie? Alfred talks about a bird. Yeah, he's talking about how he saves one of his siblings. Yeah. And he's like, my dad said I swooped in like a robin, which I don't know why he didn't pick any other more menacing type of bird. An ostrich. An eagle. Yeah, exactly. Something. A penguin. I guess we already went through that. But I thought it was very specific. Like they had a thing for robins already. Yeah, it's like, now I'm a Rob. He even winks at Alfred basically when he's like, Robin, wink, 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 wink. That story you told me. He's got the R like planted in his mask, right between his eyes. Pretty weird. Well, let's talk about some of the human people in this. What did you guys think about Nicole Kidman and her role as the psychiatrist? Is that something that happens in comic books, or was that just kind of like the 90s way to introduce mental health, basically, in a movie like this? Chase Meridian? Yeah. I think John mentioned yesterday that she's only in one comic or one type of storyline or whatever, but obviously Nicole Kidman's the Hollywood royalty, and she's awesome in almost everything that she does, and she was just recently in Aquaman and stuff, and elevated that cast to a different level and gave it some reputation and stuff like that. But I think movies like this kind of started her on that path, and she kind of owes some of these movies a little bit more than most, just to kind of get her started and stuff like that. But it was crazy to see like such a strong woman. Like you used to seeing the man kind of make the advances or trying to woo the girl, and it's kind of the opposite way in this one, because she's obviously a psychiatrist and helps Bruce deal with some of the trauma, and Alfred specifically says that she's like the key to kind of help him heal for all the past trauma. Yeah, she's really interesting, because I think one of the most fun parts of this movie is she's really attractive to Batman, but then grows to love Bruce Wayne, and it's the same person. And she chooses Bruce Wayne. Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting and kind of funny, I think, in a way. There's a scene where Val Kilmer, she tells Batman, like, I don't like you anymore because I met this new guy, and he turns and smiles at the camera like, I'm that new guy. It's kind of weird because he's like competing with himself, but he's like, either way, I win. And, oh man, kind of crazy. But yeah, she straight up calls him for a booty call with the bat signal. Midnight. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. She does it, and then she's like, meet me at my place midnight, and Batman showed up. Yeah, I know, he was ready. He was like, I'm here. I think her character is really good. And at the end of the movie too, you find out that she's really
connected to Batman and actually knows his secret identity as well, because I mean, obviously the good guys win and the Riddler is in prison, and she goes to
try to cover
double
up.
check that he doesn't know what he does know. And that's kind of the main, I guess, villain arc of the movie, is the fact that the Riddler has created, and I don't know if this has anything to do with film versus TV, because I know that was a big debate back then, what was more important or what, but the Riddler creates this device that is similar to the Incredibles 2 device. It's called the Screenslaver in Incredibles 2, but it's this device that creates mind control through your TV or like on your box.
He invented the 3D TV.
Yeah, that's right. Like the 3D. Yeah,
that's the
so
thing
funny
that he uses to keep them concentrated and stuff.
And he becomes like, he creates his own wealth and his own fame by brainwashing all of Gotham, basically. And,
to be honest, he uses all his smarts to get that layer built in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He's got the full layer where he's got a big version of the box and stuff like that. It was pretty crazy on how quickly it all happened. It's
a cool idea, I think, for I guess for like a super weapon, quote unquote. It's kind of, it reminds me too of the Batman Begins, that scared gas that they throw around everywhere, that makes everyone like see scary stuff.
Yeah, fear toxin. I thought scared gas was funny.
Yeah, the Ra's al Ghul scaredy gas. So I thought that was a really cool, I guess, just weapon.
And it felt like one of those old superhero serials where everyone's watching TV and they're getting mind controlled and they're brainwashing, you know.
I always wondered why, and then he tries to do that to Batman, like to get in his twisted mind,
his noggin.
What would they see if they were looking into your mind?
Ooh, I don't think you want to know.
Get out of there.
Probably this movie right now.
we just talked about
lots of Chase Meridian.
Well, I think we brought it up when we first started talking about this movie, but the scale of this film and the practicality of everything that happened was huge. They're even, I mean, obviously you see all the color on the set and the way they painted it and lit it, but there's even gobos they use these in like stage plays, and Schumacher puts them in his stage, basically like little frames you put in front of light to make it move. You would see like little spinning lights, like disco lights happening throughout the thing. The dry ice in this movie is insane. And then even just the way the camera is just swooping and through every part, and there are even some parts where it wasn't perfect, like it was a little shaky, going through, but it was happening, baby.
Apparently they like photographed their lights like on camera, like the lights that were lighting the set, because everything was like, they were like, especially during the circus scene, or like, in that dance or in that gala scene, they're Schumacher and the producer were saying that, like, no one does that, or at least, very rare, they don't, at least maybe at the time no one did it or something, but normally people don't do that. They photograph the actual lights that were lighting the set, because those lights that were everywhere were technically the lights for the set, which is pretty effing cool.
Just don't fucking take them down. That's what they say.
There's two reasons why that helps. Is the first, you don't have to do that many setups, because guess what? The lights are there and I don't care. Roger Deakins does that too in certain movies. Now his are not, it's a very different tone, of course, but if there's I think there's a scene in, what's that Denis Villeneuve movie about the border and cartels? Sicario. There are some scenes in Sicario where Deakins just sets up the lights and then said, "This is it, baby. We're going to keep moving the camera and shoot the whole thing." Obviously, it makes sense that Schumacher did that, or whoever lit his movie, because a lot of times this movie feels like a party. Like every room that you walk into it's got its own mood going, and I think that's what this movie was like. Whether or not it was just Jim, I was gonna say Drew Carey, Whether it was Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, like that was a party. Just the two of them.
Moon over Parma, bring my love to me tonight.
The Price is Right. Oh, they never say that in The Price is Right. Does he? Okay. He doesn't say like that price was right. But yeah, like I like that, and we don't see that much anymore. Like movies now, I don't know. I think this is kind of maybe because we did a whole podcast on the MCU and we watch a lot of DC stuff, but things have kind of moved towards the grounding of movies, and a lot of like, I empathize with these superheroes. Like they're experiencing something I've gone through, and they're very different from like a Schumacher movie where it's like, these guys are straight up, these are heroes. He's a billionaire. You have nothing in common with him. Okay.
Right,
like
yeah.
He's gone through some stuff and all of the villains are insane. It's a comic book movie. Like this, it's fantastical. And I think
kind of like Ang Lee's Hulk.
Yeah.
Where it's just like the literal comic book panels, switching back and forth, and using it as editing and stuff like that. And so it's a precursor to everything that we have now. I'm sure people will watch it and they're like, "Oh man, let's not do this." I'm just kidding.
Well, also I feel like we kind of the best. Well, I don't want to say the best, but a lot of the really good Marvel movies, like MCU movies, and I bring them up because DC is going the other way with how dark and stuff their stuff is. But some of my favorite Marvel movies are the ones that are leaning closer to these Schumacher stuff, like Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, when they're like, these are I know you want these to be grounded. We'll have some like human characters and human moments in them,
but we're gonna put a fucking dragon in there.
Yeah, like these are that. Like if we can do, I just watching some behind the scenes of Thor Ragnarok. A lot of those sets look a lot like the Batman Forever sets, and I liked it. Like these are fun. This is a giant green giant, like this is
Jolly Green Giant.
This is the Jolly Green Giant now. But I don't know. I feel like that's kind of where I like for a lot of these movies to be. I don't know. I mean, of course, I love Joker. That's right. First mention of Joker, baby. But yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys think about like the tone of superhero movies?
I think sometimes you try to like maybe they're obviously the grounded. I think right now the grounded superhero thing works. Every now and then, sometimes you get into stuff that doesn't. I think some of the more fantastical superhero movies today would probably be like Venom, or like something that's non-MCU-y, like where it's kind of like these are kind of over the top characters in a way, and they're kind of embracing that. I like the tone of these like fantastic ones. I'm not sure if they kind of like work now, but kind of looking back and seeing the whole theatrical and like the theatrical the theatricality there you go of the way superheroes are, because they're basically just people in masks and capes and stuff. It's really cool to look back on that and see how far we've come, as opposed to like because now in the Nolan movies or something, Batman has to have bulletproof armor because people will shoot at a dude in a bat mask and stuff. I think it's the tone is very obviously very weird. It's also because it's not unlike Burton's tone, because Burton's tone is still kind of in the same way, but just in a different, like, I don't know, it's kind of a little weirder. Like, that one's kind of, the emphasis is on weird for that one. I thought the tone is pretty great. I think it leads to some questionable design choices, obviously.
Nipples.
Yeah, like we haven't kind of talked about the bat nipples yet. But everyone likes to bring that up when it comes to the Schumacher movies. I don't think people can see this. It's pretty funny.
Patreon can see this.
Yeah, Patreon's gonna. Oh, Patreon knows. Does they know what we look like in general? Man,
yeah,
I thought we were kind of.
Only fans can see this.
Oh, that's where it's gonna be uploaded to. What was I? Fuck! That just threw my. Andrew was taking his shirt off, and I was like, "What?"
John's pitching a tent. No, but I think, I feel like
the bat nipples. My bad.
That we're going to talk about. But I feel like that was always like one of the weird rumors. We talked about how Schumacher was one of the first and I think most prolific openly gay directors in Hollywood, and there was always like, oh, is he doing this to be gay? Kilmer says yes. Kilmer's like, oh, he told me Batman is, there's some homoerotic stuff in here.
It's always been there with Batman and Robin too.
Look at what they wear. Look at what they're wearing. But Schumacher said at the time that he was trying to craft them on the anatomically correct Greek armor.
Statues, right.
Around at the time, and they had nips. And then also larger cod pieces.
Oh, yeah. There's also because you even see a lot of Greek or statues, kind of inspired statues in the movie. There's always a dude kind of holding a globe or something,
Well, and again, that's very true to the DC sense because they were always the gods among men.
Yeah, and I don't think
even Zack Snyder has Greek mythology in his cut.
I don't think it's even back then it was a big deal because they're why are there nipples on the suit? I don't think I've ever seen it as a big deal. It's
John,
sure
you're
it's
a big free the nip guy, right?
You got them big pepperoni sized motherfuckers.
John never wears a bra.
Free the rubber nip in this case for Batman. Joel Schumacher is quoted as saying those people need to get out more, and I kind of agree with him. I don't really think it matters in a way. I think it's a weird design choice, sure, but I don't think I don't know why everyone always brings up the nipple thing whenever they talk about Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. Again, it's a weird design choice, but I don't think it ultimately. I don't know. It doesn't
breaks
make the movie. Yeah, it doesn't. If the movie's already broken, then it's broken for other reasons, and the nipples are the last of the. It's the least of its worries, basically.
What they say is that you can milk anything with nipples.
Can you milk me, Andrew? Well, Andrew, I want to ask you,
including a bat suit.
Do you think, because I know that, this movie was successful. This movie, critics hated it. Roger Ebert, all of the big critics you think of panned it, said what a waste of, they said the meanest things about Schumacher. But then people watched this movie, and it made a shiz ton of money.
It was probably the biggest opening at the time.
It's crazy. Really big. Andrew, I got to ask you. DC is definitely going towards. I'm asking you, Andrew. Yeah, and the ghost twins behind you. I'm just kidding. But did I scare you?
The twins, like the nipples,
and twins. But so DC is definitely going towards the darker. And I'm not sure. I guess Suicide Squad 2 will come out soon, and Harley Quinn was different in tone, but do you think there's room now for a movie that is like this, at least for Batman's character, that isn't dark? Do you think there's room for something like that now?
I think there are ways you can incorporate aspects of it. A good example is in the Titans TV show. Dick Grayson is, on his way to being a Nightwing and stuff like that, and so he starts to have kind of repressed memories, just like the way Bruce Wayne's going through in this one. But he starts to imagine a lot of stuff, and he starts to talk Bruce Wayne in his mind, and they're in a bunch of ridiculous scenarios. And so at one point, they're at some jazz club, I don't know, and Bruce Wayne pops up on stage and is dancing with the burlesque dancers. Wow. And he's doing the Bat-Tusi like Adam West does in the 1966 version, and because of the situation, it doesn't feel weird, it doesn't feel out of place or anything like that. It was actually really cool. I remember screaming oh my god, he did the Bat-Tusi. I don't know how they were able to fit that in Batman's history again, but there it was. And so but I don't think that we can go backwards to something like this unless the current age of this modern superhero realistic chapter that Chris Nolan started ends.
Yeah, that's true. I think that everyone wants the caliber of filmmaker that was Chris Nolan, and his movie changed a lot when it came to superheroes, to where they were really just a vehicle for some, political message or some kind of, human psyche thing. But I will say, as you were talking, I was remembering the Lego Batman movie. And I was like, maybe that's the outlet for this. We already talked about how great Spider-Verse was, but and now Sony's talking about hard R adult hentai, more adult animated feature length movies. But Lego Batman, it was more on the meta side, but was, I thought, a really fun movie that made fun of the parts of Batman that were kind of silly, but also pay like respect to just the long history of Batman stuff out there.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison to Spider-Verse, because it does the same thing where they kind of go and show you all these different chapters throughout the character's history.
Nice. What else? What else you guys want to talk about? Batman por vida, for life, forever. Or hold on, uno, dos, tres, cuatro. Let's see how to say ever in Spanish.
Siempre.
Cuatro siempre. That's not how you say it. Yeah,
Batman siempre. Y hombre de murciélago.
Batman
siempre.
del Carnal. I'm just kidding. But what? Yeah.
I think as far as design choices go that like are cool, the Batmobile is really one of my favorite Batmobiles. As weird and as over the top looking as it is, I kind of like the little fins that kind of like spike out. Yeah, like those little things that spike out. I guess they're wings. Yeah. I really do love that I actually owned that Batmobile as a kid. So
what?
like an actual like a not the real
one for one scale replica.
You were driving as a child?
I owned the toy one, in other words. And then I would always get kind of pissed off because the little wings would kind of come apart and go like this, and they wouldn't stick back together. I kind of wanted just the single one you see in the movie.
More erect.
Yes, the erect one as opposed to the floppy one or something.
Well, here's what you got to do, John.
Not the spread on the wings.
John, you got a cup. I'm just kidding. Do you remember when in the movie when Grayson takes it out on a joyride and these bikers are about to
roll his ass.
Well, they were about to go ham on this poor, just innocent lady walking by, see the Batmobile, they let go of her, and then see it's Grayson and say, nah, let's get it's not Batman.
No, let's go to town on this guy.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, and then all those I assume ladies of the night ask, they see the Batmobile and then they're like, hey, whoa, you want? And I was like, wow, is Batman going on the regs to the red light district of Gotham City? How do they know? To be honest,
Batman says it to Chase Meridian too. She calls him the booty call, and he's like, "Is it the car?" Chicks dig the car.
Oh my gosh!
You were talking about homoerotic overtones. I thought there were just sexual overtones throughout the entire flick. This
everyone's just trying to fuck everybody, and then it even goes further when they introduce Poison Ivy in the new one.
Oh,
she's literally trying to fuck everybody
to death.
Yeah.
So also you brought up that scene where Grayson takes the Batmobile out. What's really interesting to me, even as a kid, was having criminals who have neon face paint in Gotham.
Yeah, it's because they were jogging, and so you want cars to see that them. They don't get hit.
There's also
Are they going to work, or are they like that 24/7? All the time?
They're just tattoos.
Two-Face also has the henchmen with the colorful guns and
all the midriffs and
Lost Boys running around. It is I do love a good. This happens in every Batman movie. I do love when bad guys interrupt parties. I talked about how every scene's a party. That happens so much. It happens in Nolan's Batman too. Where can rich people have a good time without getting bothered, baby?
By supervillains.
They're always coming in. It happens in the Lego Batman. It's kind of funny.
That's probably the coolest this Batman ever looks is when he crashes that party and then he starts to whip ass in on the dance floor, like the TMNT.
His stunt double.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer's stunt double. You can totally tell it's a stunt double.
Just all this fat chin. It was like the Crimson Chin.
Yeah, because that dude,
in the costume.
That fight scene is because the camera holds on it, right? So you can see the choreography of the fights.
Yeah.
That is very visibly not Val Kilmer. It's so funny.
That's Dick Kilmer.
I do love, and I already talked about how the camera moves in the movie, but it is so fluid and that it goes, especially when we get into his repressed memory and it's supposed to be like a dream, more dry ice.
Yeah,
but Dutch the way, angles. Oh my God, the Dutch angles in this
blue.
movie. But yeah, everything is blue. It's I like it. It's a nice stylistic choice for a movie that, I appreciate the fact that they could have just done like what Tim Burton did, or like, just what every other thing would have been, and
try to copy it, or
they just
fail.
They went ham. You knew that this was a Schumacher movie, not just from the way it looked, but the way it feels.
You buy into it all, and so immediately, and you're like, this is a thing. Like it to me, it didn't feel unnatural for this vision.
Yeah. We already talked about how the acting was definitely like enhanced,
over the top.
Yeah, but I feel like because they started at a 10, all of the villains started at a 10. I was like, how are they going to get to fucking
11?
How much crazier do they get? They get pretty wild, but still, it was just very insane, the entire movie.
Also, Batman totally kills Two-Face.
Yeah, but he, after he told Grayson to save him, like it's after
he's
the
all,
betrayal.
don't do it. I can do it for you.
He's like, nah,
I will shoulder this burden for you.
Does he though? All he does is just throw coins up in the air.
That's true. And Two-Face...
That sounds like some Zack Snyder logic.
But Two-Face always shoves a gun in people's mouths, too. Like,
or the Nolan logic, actually. That's probably the Nolan logic.
Yeah. It's his tell. Is that what it's called in Inception? I forgot. Top? What's it called?
Oh, the totem?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Two-Face. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
What else? What else do you guys want to talk about?
Aaron Eckhart was a better Two-Face.
That was, yeah. I mean, we've seen him before. I think that's nice because here I mean, when we talk about duality, we actually see him become Two-Face in The Dark Knight, and in this one, he's already kind of...
You kind of see him become Two-Face in this one, where Boss Marone throws the acid on him, and Batman's sitting in court, and so he kind of jumps up out of nowhere.
He is, actually. It's funny that Batman during the day is like...
I feel like he was selected for jury duty or some shit like that.
Well, let's talk about a little bit of like speculative stuff. We've already seen, you brought up Aaron Eckhart. He played Two-Face before. Who do you think would play a good Riddler?
David Tennant. I think the Riddler I see now is a little bit more like in the Arkham series games, where it's kind of like Jigsaw from Saw.
Yeah.
Where, you kind of have to have a hostage situation, or, you want to save this person, go to the thing and solve my riddle, and then you want to save this person, go to that one, and
now
until you finally end up fighting. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
The Riddler really lends itself to being kind of modernized, especially with like, we're recording on Zoom right now. The Riddler could be like, in a modern sense, like a blogger or something who just wants attention and, sets up crimes around town. And that lends itself to a really cool detective story, aspect of the whole thing.
Oh my gosh,
could be really cool.
His whole
that would be an awesome
his whole
Batman
thing is
movie
mystery.
with just that.
His whole thing is like not mystery, but a riddle.
Right, because like he's technically as smart as like he's basically trying to compete with the intellect of Batman. So a story where the Riddler is basically leaving clues, or kind of like in a Jigsaw way, would be a perfect Batman movie. Granted, he is cast in the new one, in Matt Reeves' Batman.
Oh yeah, Arkham, right?
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Paul Dano plays Edward Nashton, which is the real name of Edward Nygma. He plays the Riddler in the upcoming Robert Pattinson Batman.
That'll work for me. No Country.
Paul Dano is a great actor.
No Country
Paul
for
Dano
Old Men, right? Is he in No Country?
No, he wasn't. He was in There Will Be Blood.
Ethan Coen, yeah. Those two movies came out the same year, and
did they?
They both competed for Best Picture. No Country and There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood.
I think No Country won.
Yeah, No Country won, but There Will Be Blood is a good movie. Like,
the ending.
Yeah, he did not drink his milkshake there. No. Daniel Day-Lewis drank the milkshake for him.
Yeah, he wins. Does he?
He sucked that shit all the way up.
But yeah, so yeah, that's interesting. Those are good choices. David Tennant, Paul Dano. Yeah, I say get that Jim Carrey back, baby.
I wouldn't mind seeing like Jim Carrey, especially now that DC kind of wants to go in a multiverse direction with the this rumors of the Flash movie being like bringing Burton's Keaton Batman back. I think that's pretty cool.
Doesn't Val Kilmer come back to that Kevin Smith thing that you
Yeah, he did. Val Kilmer was in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
He's a version of Batman, Blunt Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's and that's like an in-joke thing because that movie has a lot of Batman in it. Like, you know, the previous actors who played him in
That's true.
You know, in cartoons or live action roles. Like, there's Ben Affleck is in it.
And he fights a Supergirl in Chronic as Melissa Benoist.
Yeah, he does fight
so
a Supergirl.
It's Batman versus Superman, essentially.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think Val Kilmer is probably... I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like Batman is one of those roles that... like can
has
help.
An impact on your career.
Yeah,
people don't forget.
Definitely.
Like he's in the Batman, you know, Museum, Hall of Fame, whatever you want to call it.
He was him.
He'll always be remembered because of it.
And there's gonna be.
I think he knows that too. Like I think at one point, because I think I read a interview with Kilmer. I read an interview with Kilmer recently where he's kind of explains that like he didn't want to be Batman because no one saw him as Val Kilmer. Like, you know, they kind of just saw him as like
it's a big role.
Batman. Yeah, just as Batman. So it's kind of like where that role kind of overshadows you and you'll kind of like always be known for it. And I don't think he liked that at the time. I think in recent years he's kind of warmed up to it or makes fun of it. Like, you know, kind of like the way everyone kind of does whenever there's time in between what role they took. But I wouldn't, you know, it was pretty he was pretty great as it. I don't think he should be ashamed of it. I mean, he's definitely better than George Clooney, who George Clooney apparently, you know, always, whenever they talk to him about Batman, he just kind of makes fun of it. Like, he's like, oh, it sucked.
He's
like,
self-deprecating. And I think Schumacher in an interview said that that's not fair to him. Like, he was like, he always says that
it was his fault.
He
takes responsibility.
He takes responsibility, and Schumacher's like, that's not true, like, at all. Like, I directed it.
Schumacher is the one who openly says, like, no, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really his fault.
But yeah, I think it's why we have the podcast, Revenge of the Sequel, baby.
I wanted to talk about the score and how different it is from Danny Elfman's score, because music technically in Batman movies, especially those older ones, is a big part of the experience.
Yeah, in my opinion, music is the movies of the ears.
Yes. Yeah, you're not wrong. So they obviously didn't get Danny Elfman back because of the new direction in Batman. They got Elliot Goldenthal. I think that's his name. I'm just double checking. Sorry. It was Elliot Goldenthal. He obviously went in a different direction. His songs are his score is very big and over the top. It kind of reminds you of the 60s series because there's like a lot of brass and it's like a lot of high notes. And
but they don't show like bam and boom and whiff on the screen.
No, they don't. But you can hear it though. You hear the like it's a fall. Like, you know, whenever like I don't know if anyone listens to or like, you know, knows music, but like a fall when like a trumpet plays it and then it just like kind of chromatically falls down. There's stuff like that, and it's very different. The Batman theme is more heroic as opposed to like dark. It's still satisfying though. I kind of remember that score very well, and even in watching it again, it kind of gets you pumped, especially with that very cheesy opening with the Bat logo and all the titles just flying at you. Mm-hmm. So it's a very different score. I don't think it's as effective as Danny Elfman's or as iconic, because everyone kind of remembers Danny Elfman's score being the actual one. Hell, they reused it for Justice League,
and the animated series.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. On the other soundtrack front, I think the soundtrack was very successful too. Like, you know, they had people like
U2.
Yeah, it had U2 on it. It had who was the other people, like Method Man, you know, Massive Attack, the Flaming Lips which is how I kind of discovered the Flaming Lips, which is through a Batman movie.
They're the ones with the giant hands at their concerts, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. Let me look this up.
I mean, when I saw them, they didn't have giant hands, but sure.
How do they play their instruments with giant hands?
Giant instruments, man. It just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Look. That is because they do this in concerts. Very interesting.
Just slap the shit out of somebody.
I don't know why they started doing it, but I guess it's something.
It sounds like something like the Flaming Lips would do.
Yeah, they do all kinds of crazy. Well, let's do our final thoughts about this, and then we'll close it up with our final thoughts about Schumacher. Well, I guess I'll start, and then you'll go to whoever. But yeah, this movie, Batman Forever, will live forever because it was shot on film, and celluloid never dies until it. I mean, if it's scanned digitally, yeah. I guess.
Okay.
I'm kidding, but yeah. So Batman Forever, I think, made a really big splash, and I think it's culturally super relevant film. It's a lot of fun. You see the best actors doing things that you didn't think they could do. This movie is fantastical, and it leans closer, I think, to the Adam West type of Batman that he invented, I guess, in the 60s. That kind of serial nature of it, and it's exciting, and it's very stylistic. It's very different, and I think when it comes to Batman passing hands, because it does several more times afterwards. We're about to see a Robert Pattinson version from great Matt Reeves, right? Who's making it? I think this is one of the first times that character has passed hands, and it's kind of like, when George Washington gave up being president to the next president, was it going to be okay if someone did it their way? And the answer was yes. Like, it was fine. Like, Schumacher did something that only he could do with a character that people were familiar with, and I think that when it comes to sequels, when it comes to some behind the scenes stuff, when directors leave projects, a lot of times there's now just this idea that it's going to be fine because the character is important enough and relevant enough that we can keep making Batman movies forever. And if it wasn't for Schumacher doing that and putting his own stamp on it, that I don't know if that's necessarily would be the case. I read an article that said, like, Schumacher saved Batman, and that might have been true. Like, if he didn't do it in his own way, then where would Batman be? If not, like, just the 8th copy of Tim Burton's or something.
Right. I think that's totally true. I mean, because there was obviously there was hesitation on wanting another Batman movie after Batman Returns. That's what Schumacher said, and I guess that's what what it felt like. Like everyone, back after Returns, because Returns that kind of scared off some people, especially because it's a Batman. Back in the day, superheroes weren't taken as seriously as they are now, I guess. So it seems like they kind of wanted these characters are cartoon characters or something. So like, they're meant for kids. But Batman Forever did reignite, interest in that franchise, which obviously led to Batman and Robin. And Batman and Robin wasn't a box office it wasn't like a box office failure. It's just like, it was just critically panned that it kind of, after that, people were kind of like, superheroes aren't really cool.
Yeah. It was before it was before the internet, and you would just take like critics' words for it,
Right. But after that, obviously Batman outlives everyone, really. So, he was obviously
literally
able to swing back around, with the Nolan trilogy, and then with Snyder's, interpretation, and now with Matt Reeves' new one. So Joel Schumacher is a very important. His Batman movies are a very important staple in the history of the character, and I think I obviously think like the cinematic versions are better for it, because if you didn't get those two movies, you wouldn't have had the other ones that came after it, obviously.
I think it's better than Justice League.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, which is really funny.
And
yeah,
probably might even be better than the Snyder Cut. And so I think he did something that like Neil Adams did for the comic Batman, where he kind of showed you, because there's two sides of Batman. I think there's a super dark brooding one that everyone loves and all that, but then there is this campier one that kind of fits a little bit more with the rest of the DC colorful cast of heroes and stuff like that. The Brave and the Bold and the Super Friends and Batman 66 TV show, and there's a lot of other iterations that kind of are similar to this. And so I don't think he was necessarily untrue to what Batman could be, or should be, but I mean, difference always better. You know, you get tired of the same thing, and it's like you said, like, who would have known what would have happened if someone would have tried to copy Tim Burton's style, and who knows if we would have gotten anything like, you know, Robert Pattinson as the newest Batman or whatever, you know. And so I think it's still a very colorful and pivotal part of the Batman lore.
And it was directed by a great director. I mean, the dude has made, you know, you said 25 movies.
Which
every
is
movie is different.
Yeah.
Every movie is different too. Like, you know, he has the more harder dramatic stuff that you wouldn't have, you know, you're like, wow, that's a Joel Schumacher movie. And then obviously he has, you know, the big theatrical stuff like, you know, Phantom of the Opera and, you know, this. Yeah, he was an awesome dude, and he was super nice. You know, everybody had great things to say about him, and he didn't seem to like conflict either. So whenever like people were getting, you know, fighting with each other, he would basically call it out. He's like, I don't want to work with those people anymore. Yeah, I think he lived a kind of a full life, but I still think he was probably gone too soon. We probably could have gotten maybe a few more projects out of him if he had kind of stuck around.
Yeah, I think he was really formative for a lot of the Hollywood, I guess, A-listers and the artists who are around now. Influenced so many people, and I think was really nice about it too, which you brought up. You know, sharing his success with others, and I think that's, you know, it's really crazy. And I feel like that this movie probably is one of his movies that people will remember him for. But I would say let's watch the other stuff. I mean, I really do love Phone Booth. I thought it was such a clever
Phone Booth. Yeah,
you know, and you brought up Phantom of the Opera. So many of his movies, sometimes you just question like, how do they, you know, pull this thing off? And even if the stuff he wrote, The Wiz, like a lot of the things he was just involved with were really, really good and well thought out and complete. And yeah, that's super rare.
Yeah, I think he was just always unapologetically himself, and you saw that through the movies. And it's a very breath of it's a lot of fresh air for, you know, a medium where you think that a lot of people would be happy doing what they're doing, and you know, movie making, that's the dream. And so he carried that attitude, it feels like, through every movie that he did, and he was just happy to be there, and he wanted to have fun, because that's ultimately what it's all about, having fun and, you know, being responsible for other people's joy. And so it was really cool to be able to experience most of his works in my lifetime.
Yeah, really nice. Well, cool. Well, that will bring this episode to an end. But remember, Batman lives forever.
Por vida.
Yeah, I can't wait for them to make... This was not the fourth Batman. Dang, they missed out. They could have made the number 4.
Remember, Batman also returns.
No, that's a good one. What's the name?
He also begins again.
And then he gets renamed The Dark Knight.
And he rises.
And then returns.
He rises. There you
go. But yeah, so really excited. And then we'll obviously, because of all of the Batman movies, we'll constantly be talking about him as he becomes retooled. And I'm assuming we're going to get to a point where there's 2 or 3 different Batman at the same time.
Oh, I think like next year might be the year.
Oh my God.
Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, thanks to COVID, baby. All right, well, let's go around the horn. What do you guys have to plug?
Obviously, listen to all your Delphin Pod podcasts. Go to the Patreon and sign up for cool stuff there. We got some exclusive episodes. We've got, obviously, you get to see
the video.
Us in our... Yeah, you get to see us actually talk, which is very weird. I still kind of feel weird about it. I might just get used to it by the next time this comes around.
I think we did fine. Andrew, what do you think? I think we did okay.
Debatable.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess we're going to be doing this for a while. So, like, you know, obviously sign up for the Patreon so you can see the video version of this podcast. Let us know how this sounds. So,
no,
that's
don't.
Pretty cool.
Don't.
Okay, well,
no,
fine.
I'm just kidding.
And wear a mask if you're going out in public, or if you have to go out in public. If you don't, you know, obviously stay home because it's pretty bad out there. You know, just be aware of just be courteous to others, basically. Like, wear a mask, please.
be like Batman and Robin and wear a mask.
Yeah, but do the opposite of their masks, because their masks do not cover their mouth, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, what John said. Obviously, this is proof of how bad it's gotten. Is that we don't even want to be in the same room together. So make sure to take it seriously, the way we are.
One of us doesn't want to be in the same room with the other two.
Yeah, well, I mean, John's kind of my roommate too, so I'm forced to see him.
Unfortunately.
Andrew, does your shop have an online section or anything?
We're a mom and pop store, and we can't afford to pay someone to run the complete online division by itself, so no.
Okay. But can people just Venmo you cash?
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. You're more than welcome to donate. I'm just kidding. But I mean, currently we are still open. Surprise.
Text.
But wear a mask when you go in there.
It may not be the case based on when you're listening to this. I think mankind may have perished a long time ago by the time you're listening to this.
Wow.
But yeah, wear a mask, be safe, wash your hands, brush your teeth, scrub your ass. All of the above.
Wait, can you get COVID through your butt?
I'm sure through the sphincter. Yeah,
you don't want to try. Don't experiment with that.
Imagine someone having Cheetos puffs and sucking on their fingers, and then a couple of those fingers get up in that orifice.
I shouldn't have asked. Are they hot Cheetos?
COVID. Maybe. I would hope not, because then it would burn also.
Yeah. Well, guys, yeah, yeah, it might burn. Well, yeah, thanks so much for listening. If you're on Patreon, I hope you enjoyed watching us. Hopefully you
Sorry, we're ugly.
Hopefully you got that second layer of the pod. But I think
put a face to the voices now.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, unsubscribe.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? I will say the reason why this is working out and stuff, it'd be nice that we can maybe potentially now have guests.
Yeah, so that's kind of
3 months.
We will have to figure out the audio portion of that eventually, because not everybody, I'm assuming, has a sound recorder that can double as good audio.
Yeah.
But if anything, I mean, we can just start having just video podcasts, really, and then you guys just watch them. Maybe YouTube eventually, maybe
they'll go out from behind the paywall. Maybe.